in wireless mesh. Of course, you want to move to high bandwidth throughput needs. Of course, that's also going to increase your node coverage. And so you have to include all your design characteristics. What kind of roads, percentage of roads, user throughput, land use, tree density, terrain, street layout. Some planning considerations. What is the expected or required wireless coverage? In deploying for public safety, you're always going to hear 100%. You could do 100%, but it's going to take quite a bit of effort to get there. It's really tough to get every nick and cranny in a city. But of course, you need at least 95% or greater, and you have to keep pushing it to expand that coverage. You need to always existing IT network availability. So how do you get that data back into, of course, is always got to be part of the consideration. Pole attachment agreements should be a big star beside there. That can make or break your deployment. There's a good article on Tale of Two Cities between Aurora, Illinois and Naperville, Illinois. And I keep mixing them up, but I believe in Aurora, Illinois, they don't have access to poles. That mesh system is going really slow, not getting a lot of traction. On the other side, Naperville does have access to their poles, and that mesh system is growing fairly well. So it's that part of it, and luckily we had some good relationships between the city of Providence and Narragansett, but that was a big nut to crack. And in almost every single network we've deployed, that's the first thing we go after because we know that process takes a long time. In some places, it's a smooth process. Narragansett throughout New England area has been positive, and in others, like in TXU, for instance, in the state of Texas, they just have some policies and are really tough. So it takes a long time. Approval to use city or county-owned sites. Of course, getting a list of all the city assets, again, physical, all is important. And you always need to involve additional city resources. One of the things we found when putting a city's network together is usually the demand will come from one of the departments. And in a lot of cases, it's public safety. They want to do video, they want to do applications. And so once you start to scratch the surface, every department has a wireless needs. We're sort of beyond that today in 2007. But if you start looking at what they have budgeted for these communication systems and get them to collectively come together, there's a real amount of money there that could be used to deploy a citywide system. And so if you can create a task force and just satisfy the immediate needs, then you can look down to the future, what additional applications could each department use. Then eventually you work to the place where this is a viable solution, and it's not a question of if or should, it's when can we do it, because we have to get this done. So if you create a task force that can build that momentum, definitely helps the success of the project. So again, identify potential network users and uses. This, of course, includes police, fire, public works, all departments. The information technology group definitely needs to play a big role here. That's the department that can pull all the other departments together. And at the end of the day, they don't want to manage or support different networks across all the departments within the city. Having one network obviously makes it much simpler for them. Lift stations, traffic light systems, water meters, of course, automatic meter reading is big today. Video surveillance is really probably the killer app of these mesh network systems. This is all the stuff that's going to, of course, get your ROI on the network. Identify the coverage area. Do you want to start small? I think we heard some pretty good ideas in this morning's session. I'll tell you, you don't have to start and do the whole city on day one. You can start off with something small. Build the momentum, not only from the constituents in the city, but also internally, all the resources, and get everyone's buy-in. And you don't need to do a mesh system if you have a very large footprint. You don't have to do a mesh system anywhere. You can split it between a private carrier and your own private mesh system. And a lot of great applications today that'll sort of bridge the two networks without the user having to physically change between. Identify current assets to use in your network. Is there fiber? Do you have a microwave network that's available for use? What county mounting locations? Of course, internal resource capabilities will determine how much of a partner do you need to help you build through this phase. And so probably the biggest thing would be to create a task force initially to identify what is the best alternative for a citywide system. So some of the deployment steps, of course, just like any project, you have a pre-implementation, implementation, and sort of your support and build and finish section. And again, the biggest part of these networks would be all in the planning stages. If there's just in a normal project life cycle, this one has probably a little greater just due to the amount of sites that you have to deploy in a given network. So some of the lessons we've learned, and I've said it, so I'll say it again, you have to plan before everything is hung. Backhaul, pole attachment agreements, customer network interfaces. The planning cycle is going to be a little bit longer than a traditional network. Expectations of drop-in ready, I mean, that doesn't work. We've seen it happen. We've gone back and actually corrected other people's work.